It would be really interesting for this video is to use a timer, because I only want to take about 10 minutes to try to do this. Boom. I have my talking points already prepared. Let's see if I actually do it on this video that is going to be about basics versus fundamentals. And let's see how I can meet the goal of always having unedited videos. And I also have you to talk to here, so it helps connect to a real person rather than just me processing thoughts. So I started thinking about why people make it to black belt and how some people don't. And it stems from a question from last week when we had a visitor come through asking me what the difference is between basics and fundamentals, because the class schedule shows basics on certain days and fundamentals on certain days. So putting those two together actually gave me an epiphany. So let's see if I can share it here. All right, so the basics, let's define them first. Basics is how to do things, and they could be techniques, it could be combinations, giving examples like from Muay Thai. How do you do the kickstands? How do you throw a punch? How do you throw a kick? How do you defend against that? How do you chain them together, right? Like I can say jab, cross, right kick, cross hook, right kick, shield, return, cross hook, right kick. But then you're looking at it from a choreographed perspective, and choreography is still a basic, even though you might be stringing some of these things together. In jiu-jitsu, it could be how to apply close guard, how to do an arm bar from close guard, how to escape from top mount. And even if I were to make it seem complex, how to do the tornado choke, even though it's flashy. All that to me is considered basics, because you can explain the technique in detail and we can understand the mechanics. If I were to draw from, let's say, Taekwondo, they have the 720 kick, right? To me, it's still basic. And discounted that it looks flashy, and you have to still develop power in your legs, right? Strength in your legs is a basic. Power in your legs is a basic. Developing that is a basic. And then finding timing is a basic. So what seems to be advanced movements, really it's basics with physical attributes in mind. That's what it is. But what about the fundamentals? So let's define that one. Fundamentals are the why behind what we do. So why throw the jab? Why block and then throw a combination after? Why break its rhythm? Why do I choose to do this, the tornado choke, right? It seems flashy, and then like, why would you do that? Because it's available, right? Like you're no longer talking about the mechanics of it. Like you're actually talking about being present. You're talking about dynamics, and you're talking about context. So the difference between basics and fundamentals is how and why. And you can come up with an infinite amount of explanations on the why. And that's where our intelligence and our reasoning skills come into play. So let's see. The people who make it to black belt are the ones becoming more aware about fundamentals. When they move from learning how to do something and wanting to know why it works to apply it in their given situation, those people are the ones that make it to black belt, because what they're doing is using basics in a way through context that makes them better. So the quote of a black belt is the master of the basics comes into play. There's a hidden message inside of that. So let's see if I can break that for a second. Or let me see if I can make a paradigm shift. And a black belt is one who is mastering, because it's an ever-going thing, fundamentals. So I can throw a jab just plainly, and I could throw a jab through timing. Something calls for the jab. That's a fundamental. Gameplay inside of sparring, right? Like I'm connecting sparring and gameplay together because we want to develop skill. Skill comes from fundamentals, not from basics. When we get lost inside of using fundamentals, we have to anchor ourselves somewhere, and that's the basics. So you hear coaches and even teammates and fellow students saying, go back to your basics. Okay, let me just use that in my context rather than trying to come up with some other technique. Since I know what the basics are, just use that in my context. And I think I just looped myself on that. All right, I think that's a really good chunk of understanding there. So let me use something here that ties to that, because I think of Bruce Lee, and he was, at the time, he wrote a book called the Tao of Jeet Kune Do. And through our instructors like Dan and Asanta, we were able to learn what those things are. And in JKD, the thing that he wrote were a few principles like ABC, attack by combination, SDA or SAA, single direct attack, single angulated attack. Then you have PIA, progressive indirect attack, ABD, attack by draw, and HIA, hand immobilization attack. Notice in those things, none of it is a technique at all. And if you look at some of his old footage, he always talked about like blending arts. Because what I think he was trying to create is the book on fundamentals. Perhaps if he was still alive today, he would have eventually reached that point of explaining what fundamentals are. Because he drew from fencing, he drew from wrestling, he even drew from dancing. Right? Not a lot of people know that he was like into salsa or the cha-cha. I think it was the cha-cha. Cha-cha. I have to look into that. So ABC, attack by combination. Everyone understands that. Do you know what the combinations are first? That's basic. Do you know how to apply them in given real time? Fundamental. Single direct attack. Do you know how to directly attack? Do you know how to angulate the attack? Do you know when to do it? Why to do it? Are you reading the opponent? And all of these things I think is really interesting, because when you translate it to real life, what is your attack by combination in real life? And here's where some of the parallels could be. The combination could be something in your daily routine. Yeah, I know how to brush my teeth. Yeah, I know how to make myself a cup of coffee. Yeah, I know how to get my stuff together and put it on the corner of the doorway, so when I walk to my car to drive to work, it's there. But do I know how to combine it in a way through the fundamental of my day? The day says routine. So when I put the combination together on brushing my teeth, making my coffee, and then having my bag, the fundamental reason is so that way I don't rush to go to work and be stressed out and exhausted just trying to accomplish the morning. So basics and fundamentals. Let me go into what seems to be off on a parallel, and by no means I'm a financial advisor, but even through stock market, right? We have flashy stocks in the same way that we have flashy techniques in martial arts. But what is the fundamentals of the stock market? Well, what are the fundamentals of the companies that you look into? Because over the long run, if you actually follow companies and purchase, I don't say purchase, let's say invest. When you invest in the fundamentals of the business, like we have Kroger right over here and they're publicly traded, the fundamental is people need food. Meats, produce, supplements, candy, people like to eat that stuff, right? Enjoy, eating. Let's say 3M, right? Like they make Scotch tape. I think that's what they name it, Scotch tape. Masks from COVID time, and all the other products, because we need those things inside of our home. They just happen to be a brand and they're publicly traded. Yeah, they both have a dividend that they pay, but the fundamental part of their business says that's something to invest in. And you want to avoid flashy things because now you're treating it as a retail experience, like today's drop shipping. Oh, that's 10 minutes. 10 minutes. So that means I'm at a 10-minute mark. Let me see if I can close this up. Connecting to the stock market and what I do inside of my morning, and then the difference between basics and fundamentals in martial arts class. The black belt then is more of an experience to reach a degree of your life so that way you can practice long term and it's not an end. So too is all the other things, the ones that you carry on into the future, and the deeper connections you have to that understanding, you will now have a fundamental that you'll always follow. I think I'll end that from here. Thanks for watching.